October 12, 1928, 6:23 a.m. Sonny Capone's empty bed still held the warmth of his small body when Al Capone found the ransom note pinned to his 8-year-old son's pillow with a blood-stained knife. "We have your boy. $500,000 or you'll find him in pieces scattered across Chicago. You have 48 hours. The Five Families Alliance." Al's hands didn't tremble as he read the words that would seal the fate of 5 crime organizations. His voice remained calm when he called his lieutenants. His expression showed no fear, no panic, no desperation. Instead, Al Capone smiled with the cold satisfaction of a man who had just been given legal justification to do what he had always wanted: completely erase his enemies from existence. What the Five Families Alliance didn't know as they celebrated their perfect kidnapping was that they hadn't just taken Al Capone's son. They had signed the death warrant for every man, woman, and child connected to their organizations, and Al Capone was about to demonstrate to Chicago that some mistakes are so unforgivable that they require the complete extinction of everyone who made them. What made the kidnapping of Sonny Capone the greatest strategic error in organized crime history wasn't just that it enraged the most dangerous man in America. It was that Al Capone had been waiting for exactly this kind of provocation to justify the total war he had been planning for months. The Five Families Alliance thought they were pressuring Al into negotiation. Instead, they had given him permission to commit genocide. To understand what happened in October 1928, you need to understand what Sonny Capone meant to his father. Sonny wasn't just Al's only legitimate child. He was the 8-year-old boy who represented everything pure and innocent in Al's violent world, the one person who could make America's most feared criminal laugh, play, and remember what it felt like to love something more than power. When Al looked at Sonny, he didn't see the heir to a criminal empire. He saw the future he was building, the legacy he was protecting, the reason every brutal decision was worth making. The Five Families Alliance had studied Al's organization for months, identifying his weaknesses, mapping his vulnerabilities, planning their attack, but they had made one fatal miscalculation. They thought Al's love for his son would make him weak and desperate. Instead, it made him absolutely ruthless and completely patient. The war that would follow wouldn't be about rescuing Sonny. It would be about teaching the world that threatening Al Capone's family was a mistake that required not just punishment, but the total erasure of everyone who had ever considered making it. September 15, 1928, 4 weeks before the kidnapping. Vincent Torino sat in the back room of Mama Rosa's restaurant, hosting the secret meeting that would doom his entire bloodline. Representatives from 5 of Chicago's oldest crime families had gathered to discuss what they called the Al Capone problem. "He's gotten too powerful," Vincent told the assembled bosses. "Every month Capone absorbs more territory, more business, more influence. If we don't stop him now, there won't be room for families like ours in Chicago." Michael Romano, head of the Romano family, studied intelligence reports on Capone's organization. A direct war would be suicide. Capone's got too many soldiers, too much protection, too many resources. "Then we don't fight his organization," Vincent replied with a cold smile. "We attack what he cares about most. We take his son." The room fell silent as the other bosses processed the implications of kidnapping a child. "That's a line we don't cross," said Anthony Gianelli, head of the Gianelli family. "We're criminals, not child killers." "We're not going to kill the boy," Vincent explained. "We're going to use him as leverage. Capone pays the ransom, we get our money and send a message. Capone refuses, we eliminate him and divide his territory." What the Five Families Alliance didn't understand was that they were planning to cross the one line that would transform Al Capone from a businessman who used violence when necessary into a force of nature that would destroy everything in its path. September 25, 1928, 3 weeks before the kidnapping, the Five Families Alliance finalized their plan to kidnap Sonny Capone. They had studied the boy's routines, identified his vulnerabilities, mapped his security. They knew that Sonny walked to St. Patrick's Elementary School every morning at 7:30, accompanied by only one bodyguard who could be easily overwhelmed. "The kidnapping happens on October 12th, Vincent announced to his co-conspirators. "We take the boy on his way to school, hold him at the Romano warehouse on South Side, demand $500,000 ransom." "What if Capone refuses to pay?" asked Franco Benedetto, head of the Benedetto family. "Then we kill the boy and declare war on his organization," Vincent replied. "Either way we win. Either we get rich, or we eliminate our biggest competitor." But the Five Families Alliance had made a critical error in their planning. They assumed Al Capone would react to his son's kidnapping the same way any normal parent would react. They expected panic, desperation, emotional decision-making that would make Al vulnerable to manipulation. They had no idea that Al Capone's love for his son was so absolute that it would turn him into something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. October 10th, 1928, 2 days before the kidnapping. Al Capone was reviewing business reports in his office at the Lexington Hotel when Frank Nitti knocked on his door, carrying intelligence that would change everything. "Boss," Nitti said carefully, "we've got a problem. Our informants say the Five Families Alliance is planning something big, something involving Sonny." Al looked up from his papers, his expression immediately becoming deadly serious. "What kind of something?" "They're planning to kidnap him, take him on his way to school, demand ransom money." Al set down his pen and stared at Nitti for several seconds, processing the information with the calculating mind that had made him Chicago's most successful criminal. "How long have you known about this?" Al asked. 3 days. I wanted to be sure before I told you." "Good," Al replied, surprising Nitti with his calm response. "I want you to let it happen." Nitti looked confused. "Boss, they're talking about kidnapping Sonny, your son." "I know exactly what they're talking about," Al said, standing up and walking to his office window overlooking Chicago. "Frank, for months I've been looking for an excuse to eliminate the Five Families Alliance completely. They've been interfering with our business, stealing our territory, undermining our operations, but I couldn't justify the kind of total war that would be required to destroy them permanently." Al turned back to face Nitti, and his expression was that of a man who had just solved a complex puzzle. "Now they're going to give me that justification. When they take Sonny, they're not just kidnapping my son, they're declaring war on my family. And when someone declares war on Al Capone's family, the response isn't negotiation, it's annihilation." "But boss, what about Sonny? What if they hurt him?" Al's expression softened for just a moment as he thought about his 8-year-old son. "Sonny's going to be fine, Frank, because I'm going to make sure that every person involved in his kidnapping understands that hurting him would be the last mistake they ever make." October 12, 1928, 7:28 a.m. Sonny Capone was 2 blocks from St. Patrick's Elementary School when 3 men in dark coats stepped out of an alley and surrounded him and his bodyguard. The bodyguard, Tony Accardo, reached for his gun, but found himself outnumbered and outgunned. "Easy, Tony," said Vincent Torino, holding a Thompson submachine gun. "We don't want to hurt anyone. We just want to have a conversation with young Mr. Capone here." Sonny looked up at the men with the fearless curiosity of an 8-year-old who had grown up around dangerous people. "My papa's not going to like this," he said calmly. "Your papa's going to pay us a lot of money to get you back," Vincent replied, motioning for his men to take the boy. As Sonny was led away, he called back to Tony Accardo. "Tell my papa I wasn't scared. Tell him I remembered what he taught me about being brave." Those words would haunt Vincent Torino for the remaining 6 hours of his life. October 12, 1928, 8:15 a.m. Al Capone sat in his office, reading the ransom note that had been delivered exactly as he had expected. Frank Nitti stood beside his desk, waiting for orders that would reshape Chicago's criminal landscape. $500,000, Al read aloud. 48 hours to comply. Interesting terms. "What do you want to do, boss?" Al folded the ransom note carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. "I want you to call an emergency meeting of our entire organization, every lieutenant, every soldier, every associate. Tell them we're going to war. Against the Five Families Alliance? Against everyone who ever supported them, everyone who ever worked with them, everyone who ever sold them a drink or shined their shoes," Al replied. "When this is over, Frank, those 5 families won't just be defeated, they'll be extinct." Al walked to his safe and removed a detailed file that he had been preparing for months. It contained the names, addresses, and personal information of every person connected to the 5 crime families that had dared to touch his son. "How many people are we talking about, boss?" Nitti asked, looking at the thickness of the file. 237 people, Al replied without hesitation. "Men, women, children, grandparents, cousins, friends, business associates, anyone who ever took money from these families or did favors for them." "All of them?" "All of them, Frank. When someone kidnaps Al Capone's son, the response isn't proportional, it's absolute." October 12, 1928. 10 a.m. Al Capone addressed his assembled organization in the ballroom of the Palmer House Hotel. 48 men gathered, expecting to hear about rescue plans and ransom negotiations. Instead, they were about to become participants in the most comprehensive campaign of revenge in criminal history. "Gentlemen," Al said, standing before his soldiers, "this morning 5 crime families declared war on our organization by kidnapping my son. They think they can pressure me into paying ransom money. They think they can use my love for Sonny against me." Al paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "They're wrong. My love for Sonny doesn't make me weak, it makes me absolute. It gives me the justification to do what I've been planning for months: eliminate our competition completely." Al nodded to Frank Needy, who began distributing folders to each man in the room. "Each of you has been given a list of targets connected to the 5 families that took my son: the Romano family, the Torino family, the Gianelli family, the Benedetto family, and the Colombo family. Every person on these lists will be eliminated within the next 24 hours. One of Al's lieutenants raised his hand. "Boss, some of these are women and children, people who aren't even involved in the family's criminal activities. They became involved the moment their families decided to kidnap an 8-year-old boy." Al replied coldly, "When someone threatens my family, everyone connected to them becomes a legitimate target. No exceptions, no mercy, no survivors." The room fell silent as the magnitude of Al's plan became clear. This wouldn't be a rescue operation or a targeted retaliation. This would be the systematic extinction of 5 entire crime families and everyone associated with them. October 12, 1928. 2 p.m. The war began with surgical precision. Al Capone's soldiers launched coordinated attacks across Chicago, targeting every location where members of the 5 families alliance could be found. The Romano family's restaurant was firebombed while customers were eating lunch. The Torino family's construction company was attacked by men with automatic weapons. The Gianelli family's social club was surrounded and everyone inside was eliminated. But Al's strategy went beyond simply killing his enemies. He was systematically destroying their support networks, their legitimate businesses, their sources of income, their political connections. Within 6 hours, 5 of Chicago's oldest crime families had lost not just their leadership, but their entire infrastructure. Vincent Torino, hiding in a Southside warehouse with kidnapped Sonny Capone, received phone calls every hour describing the destruction of his family's empire. "Vincent," Al's voice came through the telephone at 3 p.m. "I want you to know that your brother Anthony is dead. So is your nephew Michael. So are your wife and 2 daughters." Vincent felt his blood turn to ice. "Capone, you bastard. I'll kill the boy." "No, you won't," Al replied calmly. "Because if you hurt one hair on Sonny's head, I'll make sure your death takes 3 days instead of 3 minutes. You have something that belongs to me, Vincent. I want it back." October 12, 1928, 8 p.m. By evening, 4 of the 5 crime families had been completely eliminated. The Romano family extinct. The Gianelli family extinct. The Benedetto family extinct. The Colombo family extinct. Only Vincent Torino and 3 of his soldiers remained alive, trapped in a warehouse with Sonny Capone while Al's army surrounded the building. Al Capone stood outside the warehouse, speaking to Vincent through a megaphone. "Vincent, this is Al. I want to make you an offer. Send my son out unharmed, and I'll kill you quickly. Hurt him in any way, and I'll spend the next week teaching you why kidnapping children was the worst decision you ever made." From inside the warehouse, Vincent screamed back, "I want safe passage out of Chicago. I want a car, a boat, a way to disappear." "Vincent," Al replied, "there is nowhere on earth you can hide from me. There is no amount of distance that will keep you safe. There is no authority that will protect you. You kidnapped my son. Your life ended the moment you made that choice." October 12, 1928, 11:47 p.m. The siege ended when Vincent Torino's own men, terrified by the complete destruction of their allies, turned their guns on their boss and opened the warehouse doors. Sonny Capone ran into his father's arms, unharmed but aware that something terrible had happened because of his kidnapping. "Papa," Sonny said as Al held him, "I wasn't scared. I remembered what you taught me about being brave." Al knelt down to his son's eye level, studying the boy's face to make sure he was truly unharmed. "You did good, Sonny. You did exactly what you were supposed to do." "What happened to the bad men?" Sonny asked with the direct curiosity of a child. Al looked over at the bodies of Vincent Torino and his soldiers, then back at his son. "They learned that some mistakes can't be forgiven, Sonny. They learned that when you hurt someone's family, the consequences are bigger than you can imagine. October 13, 1928, the morning after. Chicago woke up to a city where 5 crime families had simply ceased to exist. 237 people connected to the 5 families alliance were dead. Their businesses were destroyed. Their territories were absorbed into Al's empire. Their names were being erased from every record and memorial in the city. Al Capone had done more than rescue his son. He had demonstrated to every criminal organization in America that there were levels of retaliation beyond anything they had ever imagined. The kidnapping of one child had resulted in the complete extinction of 5 families and everyone associated with them. The psychological impact lasted for decades. Criminal leaders across the country began implementing strict rules about targeting family members. Everyone understood that challenging Al Capone's business was dangerous, but threatening his family was genocide. Al Capone's message was clear. Some lines, once crossed, didn't just result in punishment, they resulted in the complete erasure of everyone who had ever considered crossing them. If this story of ultimate family loyalty and devastating revenge shocked you, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who understands that in the world of organized crime, threatening someone's children doesn't just cross a line, it erases every line that ever protected you. Drop a comment below. Do you think Al Capone's response was justified, or did he go too far? Turn those notifications on, because next week we're telling the story of how Al Capone's final confrontation with federal justice became the end of an era and the beginning of a legend. Remember, in the world of family and loyalty, the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones who threaten you, they're the ones who threaten the people you love. And Al Capone proved that when someone crosses that line, the response isn't just personal, it's apocalyptic.